Hey there, thanks for tuning into Duck Bricks. I'm Chris, and well, this is probably my biggest, craziest, and most expensive Bricklink haul yet. So in case you don't know, Bricklink.com is the officially owned by LEGO secondhand market reselling website. If it is a LEGO product, it exists on Bricklink, and it probably is for sale, which is really great at buying either older LEGO sets, minifigs, or just some random rare stuff I missed out on. And so over this holiday season, over December and January, I went ahead and purchased a ton of the LEGO sets I'd been wanting for a long time, but just didn't get a chance to get on my own. And the reason why this video is coming out so late is because unfortunately, a lot of those were overseas, and they take literally months to ship. So several months later, I have gotten most of my packages. There's still a few I'm waiting on, but I figured there's enough to make a video on because there is so much to cover here. I think we should just go ahead and get started because there's a lot to see. Alright, so here we are with the haul. This is pretty much everything I've gotten on Bricklink over the span of, I'd say, about a month or two. There's a lot of stuff here that honestly I've been pursuing for a really long time. A lot of these things are filling up just these small gaps in my collection, things that I never thought I would own, and just other miscellaneous stuff that I really desperately needed in my collection. So the sets here pretty much comprise of basically a ton of stuff I really needed to fill a ton of really important gaps in my collection. To now owning every single idea set, to filling up some of the gaps for my Technic flagship models, and even completing my collection of A-Full designer program sets, as well as getting a few rare and exclusive figures I thought I would never own in my lifetime. There's a lot of really exciting stuff to get into here. This is probably my most exciting Bricklink haul yet, so let's just dive right in and take a look at everything. So I wanted to kick the haul off by taking a look at an object that really isn't even technically a LEGO set. And I didn't actually get this one from Bricklink. I actually got this one from a fan of the channel who reached out to me on Instagram. You can check out my Instagram, duck_bricks below, and mentioned he had something pretty interesting to sell me. And as soon as I saw a picture, oh man, was I sold, because this right here is an authentic LEGO store sign. If you've ever been to a retail LEGO store, this is the kind of sign that they have basically on the top of the store. I have no idea how this was obtained. I do not know what happens. I'm presuming that a store closed and someone managed to get their hands on it, but this is certainly incredibly rare. It's super cool to actually have a piece of an official LEGO retail store, and actually what's even cooler is that this is somewhat transparent because it was designed to reflect the light and have a light be placed behind it to illuminate the store sign. You can actually put a light behind it or put it against the window and light will shine through it. So this is super cool to get in my collection. Never thought I'd ever own one of these, and frankly, I don't really know what I'm going to do with it. I'm probably going to put it up in my LEGO collection room eventually when I move out of this apartment and go back home, but for now, it's just going to stay propped up against the window. This is a really cool store sign. I cannot wait to kind of do more stuff with it, maybe make a larger display out of it, and it's just such a cool thing to have because it is so massive. It's really heavy too. This is like an acrylic sign or something like that. I mean, you can see back here, it's pretty plain on the backside, but this is a pretty heavy sign. It's very much a large display item, and it's so cool to have this in my collection. With that though, let's now move on to the actual LEGO sets from Bricklink in this haul. Alright, so first off here we have set number 8485, simply titled Control Center 2. Now in the past LEGO did a Control Center 1, and this one was essentially the next version of that same control setup. It's a really interesting display here because, as you can see, this actually features a fully posable dinosaur, which again can be controlled using the control center down at the bottom. Now this set in particular I actually did get shipped from overseas, so I did actually have to get a power adapter to make it work. However, for the versions released in the US, it basically just works the same way. One thing that really drew me to the set is that the large-scale version of this exact model can actually be seen at certain Legoland locations around the world. Particularly in Legoland Windsor, outside of one of their buildings, it's erupting from the side of the building is this exact LEGO set in full-on realistic life-size scale. That's honestly what kind of convinced me to get this set myself, and I am definitely very happy I was able to get it. You can see the power converter right there, and all in all, this is one of the most detailed and interesting sets that I am able to add to my collection. So with that aside, let's now actually move into what exactly this entire model does. Well, first of all, as you can see on the instructions page, you can actually use it to be rebuilt into different builds. There is a helicopter build, which arguably I would say is a little less interesting than the dinosaur. There's a reason why I specifically picked this model to build, but as you can see right here, moving the A and B buttons allow you to rotate the movement and pivot it upwards and downwards. Now this already is a pretty cool feature on its own, but the real magic happens with this yellow control wheel right here. So first of all, as I just simply push this downwards, you'll notice that you can control the movement of the jaw as well as the front hands. But that's not all, because this, again, is a whole lot different control gimbal. So not only can you press and hold down the button, but you can also hold it on the side to move the head and tails side to side. This is making use of the relatively limited cables that were used throughout Technic sets around this particular era. They weren't used in a ton of different sets, but again, as you can see, this is a set that used it really well. And the coolest thing to me about this is that every single one of the motions can be operated separately. There's no switching of gears to allow you to only do one at a time. As you can see right here, every single bit of the model is moving, from the torso pivoting up and down to the arms, jaw, and tail moving side to side and back and forth, allowing for really realistic motion. But that honestly is still not all the set has to offer. Again, there's a reason why it's called the Control Center, and it's specifically because if you say record a movement that you especially like and want to display for people to see, you can actually record a certain set of movements on the control panel itself. It will remember it for next time, and as you can see here, there are buttons to stop, play, and pause the movement. So you can just hit record, do whatever you want, and it stores the exact motions in a Program 1 or Program 2. Now this is such a cool feature. A few other LEGO sets had something similar around its time, but really, this was kind of something that was exclusive to mostly like LEGO Mindstorms, and it was really rare to see it in a standard retail LEGO Technic set like this. All in all, this is a fantastic way to start off the list. I am very happy to have this in my collection, and I'm also kind of really curious to see how the other alternate models actually work out. The helicopter does seem like you can move it backwards and forwards on the gimbal there, as well as, of course, I'm expecting the blades to spin. The hovercraft, honestly, not too interesting. I'm guessing that maybe you could drive it around a little bit, but given that it has to be attached by a cable, you're going to be kind of limited in motion there. This did, however, include a ton of extra pieces, so if for whatever reason I manage to get my hands on another control center, I certainly will be very interested in seeing how all of these other models work. With that though, we have summed up this main model, again set number 8485, Control Center 2, easily one of my favorite and most interesting LEGO Technic sets. With that though, let's now move on to our next set on the list. And on the topic of Technic, next up here we have set number 42055. This is the Bucket Wheel Excavator. It was the flagship Technic set for 2015, and this is a really unique design and is also fully motorized. And this basically has one major play feature. You take these little bits and pieces of LEGO bricks and bobs and whatnot, you dump them through the top here, and it essentially uses a conveyor belt system to get the pieces up this passageway here, down this chute here, into this unloading area here, and then empties it back into the truck. You can also drive it around and move it around, so let's just now demonstrate the main electronic features. So first off, there's an on and off switch here. I'm going to start by turning that on, and there's a few different things you can do. The moment I switch this way, you'll notice that the bucket wheel and conveyor belt will actually start spinning. We're just going to start off with a small handful of these pieces just so we can really track the movement here. The way it's supposed to work is that you essentially have to pretend that you're scooping these up out of the side of a wall or something. Let's say, for example, you've got a piece in there, and a piece in there. So, scoops it in, they all go down, and as you can see, they're moving along this conveyor belt here. Let's get this back in position. It now dumps them onto the second conveyor belt, and as you can see, they are slowly moving out right there. So that is essentially how it is supposed to work. It's a super simple system. It's really just taking LEGO pieces from here, moving them down the conveyor belt here, and putting them into the outshoot here. But there's a few more things you can do with it. So let's now try to move this a different way. First of all, moving this lever here allows you to actually change the position of the vehicle. So Once we are going this way, you'll notice that the vehicle has actually started moving. It moves very, very slowly, but as you can see, it is moving, and this is at full power. It's just really, really slow with the tread movements there. It almost barely even moves at all. So this is just a really slow movement, but it does make sense for something this large to move so slowly. Now, what's cool is that you can actually also change the rotation as it's moving. So if you actually want to do that, let's kind of change this around here. And now you can see that the entire thing is, while it's actually scooping up the drill, it's also rotating. So as you can see here, the entire platform is rotating all at once. It's a really cool play feature. And again, everything moves very slowly. So it is rotating ever so slowly around, but you can still see the rotation going all the way alongside here, which I think is pretty cool. Let's rotate it the back way here, just flipping this control the other way. And then it will start to slowly rotate back. While it's doing that, there's a couple other things you can do here, such as moving a ladder down for figures to presumably get in and out. What's also cool is that this is kind of minifigure scale-ish. It's not like most Technic sets, which are way too large to be minifig scale. This is definitely micro scale, but if you wanted to, you can fit a minifigure in there. If you look inside the cockpit there is a tiny little seat, so I guess this is more of like a microfig scale set, but if you really wanted to, a minifigure could easily fit in just fine. Now with that, we can look around. There's a few other things you can do here once we get this thing all rotated around. Here we go. And you can actually adjust the position of the actual bucket wheel itself. Sadly, this part is not motorized. You do just have to twist this section right here, but as you can see here, you can really start to lower this down by just kind of scooping it down here, really get that all the way down to the almost ground-like aspect, so it's like you're digging up from the ground. So that is a pretty cool thing to do here, just allowing you to dig down like this, so it really can bring it as low down to actually touching the ground. So this is actually hitting my finger here, so if I really wanted to, if you're on the right surface, you could actually get a pile of bricks and really have it scoop stuff up. Now, of course, it goes all the way up as well. Again, it takes a lot of turns to actually actuate this because they don't want you to be moving it super, super fast. You can really just kind of move it really slowly just to make sure all the machinery is working. But yeah, as you can see here, you can raise the entire bucket wheel up all while it's moving. This is about as high as you can get to really get it up to the main elevation. Beyond that, it also does have this little truck, which is really just in the set to transport the pieces here and there. It's a very, very simple build. It's really just almost like a small scale Technic set build. Oh, there you go. It's actually scooping out of here. So let's actually see if we can manage to get it to scoop out of the truck. This might be a little messy, but let me see if we can get this lined up here. I'm going to stop the scooping for now. We're going to back the truck into position. Can we raise this up? Can't really raise it up too much. So maybe if we were somewhere here, let's just see if this is successful. I don't know if this will work whatsoever, but let's see that here. And I guess if you really wanted to play around with it, all right, we're getting some, sort of. We're getting a little bit here. It's a little messy, but that is how it is supposed to work. And now we're just making a mess, but we managed to actually scoop some up. So there they go, down the chute. And now going out to here, and lastly, there is something you can rotate here. So if you wanted to, you can rotate where these fall out, like so. They're just all falling out everywhere, all over the place, but this can be fully rotated back and forth, like you can see right here. And you can also lock it. So let's say you want to lock it in like this position. You can toggle this right here, and that basically locks it. You can't really move it around too much beyond that. So just a lot of really fun functionality. It does get very messy with all these bits and pieces scattered around the table, but it is a really fun set and probably one of my favorite flagship Technic sets ever, honestly, just because of how unique it is. I've had this on my wish list for a long time. I've been wanting this for a while, but I only very recently started collecting all of the Technic flagship sets, and so I'm really happy to have this in my collection. With that though, we can now move on to our next LEGO set. Next up, we have set number 8458. On the subject of Technic, this was one of their flagship sets from the year 2000, featuring a massive silver F1 racing car, which you can see right here. Now, the Silver Champion is pretty special because it actually uses the color of metallic silver, hence the name Silver Champion, and it introduced a ton of differently colored metallic elements in the set. From the large panels up the front here to some of the shorter ones just kind of used throughout, this really did take full advantage of the different recolors they did of these silver pieces to give us a really well put together car, especially for its time. Since this came out in the year 2000, sure, some of the building techniques are a little rudimentary, but I'm actually pretty impressed by the amount of different techniques that went into this, from full suspension on the front and the back of the car, as well as an entirely lifting canopy, which you can see here, that all lifts up thanks to these spring-loaded articulating pistons right here, and it can just be closed down like so, and it works perfectly fine. Lifting it back up again, you'll notice that as you spin the wheels, it actually moves the engine cylinders. Nowadays, Technic cars have a much more complicated gearbox to achieve basically the same effect with exactly the same pieces. Now, what's really interesting is that these are actually molded in clear, so you could actually see the pistons moving in and out. Eventually, LEGO discontinued the clear pieces and replaced them in favor of just the light gray versions, but very recently, just last year for the Batman Technic car, they reintroduced these particular piston pieces in clear. So kind of cool to see that be resurrected, and it is something that is, I guess, now still appearing in modern sets today. You can also see a hint at the way the piston system works here, or the hydraulics here. Having some sort of a spring-loaded articulation on the back of the car is really cool. I like the way that they actually mounted these horizontally, which is really unique for a car of this size. Now, pretty much this also obviously has basically these standard Technic features of steering. You turn the steering wheel up at the front here, and you can see the wheels rotate like so. So you basically just have this to be expected. It is a really well done car, and it's really nice to actually be able to add this to my flagship LEGO Technic set collection. With that though, let's move on to our next model. So next up here we have what is probably one of the rarest LEGO items on this list. It is set number 76980, the LEGO Overwatch 2 Titan set. Now this set is particularly special because this actually was cancelled or delayed. You see, this was originally supposed to be released sometime around last year or even the year before in 2020, until Overwatch 2 the game was delayed, and as such LEGO decided to hold on to it before the game was actually released. Finally, they decided they were done waiting long enough, and they essentially just put this up for sale on February 1st, 2022. However, unfortunately, due to several behind-the-scenes issues with the Blizzard Corporation, which is the company that owns Overwatch, they have a long track record of really not having some very good practices when it comes to their workplace and environment, so LEGO decided to delay the set or potentially cancel it as they review their partnership with Blizzard, to ensure that they are only supporting companies and making products with companies that are actually good companies and not having these really big and widespread issues in the workplace. And as such, set number 76980, the Titan, was delayed yet again or potentially completely canceled. So I managed to find this on eBay. It appears that a couple copies made it out. It's a very similar situation to the Bell Boeing Technic Osprey, which was canceled due to being a military vehicle, where a few copies made it out to some regions of the world, but as such became incredibly expensive. So while the set was originally supposed to retail for $70 US, I unfortunately had to pay $510 on eBay for this set, and it did come fully sealed. Now, I am going to be in a lot of trouble if LEGO eventually decides to release this. It will have been a big waste of money, but I played a gambit here. I don't think LEGO's ever going to release this set. Who knows what will happen? Maybe sometime in the future down the line, but honestly, it's been delayed so many times already that LEGO is probably just ready to be done with it. So despite the set having supposed to have been released in 2022, unfortunately it was designed probably around 2019 or earlier, which means it does not make use of any of the brand new 2022 mech building techniques that really could have benefited this mech. As you can see here, as we kind of move the arms upwards, the way it works is that the legs are still using the older style of Technic ratchet joint, which does work okay for this mech, but it's immediately obsolete because literally just this year in 2022, LEGO released a new version of this exact leg joint made for this exact application of mechs that need legs and arms. They also use the same exact joint for the upper arm here. You can see it's a little bit awkward in the fact that it stretches so far backwards, and yeah, they literally made a new part for 2022 that would have made this entire system obsolete. So obviously you can easily tell that this was not a set that was designed to come out in 2022. It was probably supposed to be released in 2020, going by just some of the interesting new colors that would have probably been introduced in the set, like these studs in dark red, before they eventually got released with, say, the Iron Man mosaic. There's just a lot of things in here that really makes me suspect that it was supposed to to be released far earlier because, again, Overwatch 2 was supposed to come out way earlier than it actually has. And at the time of this recording, Overwatch 2 isn't even out yet. So I guess LEGO just got super unlucky with this. That being said, it is a pretty fun build. There's actually a really interesting thing going on here where you can open up the chest cavity here and you press a button in the back and there's actually a light function. So as you can see right there, there is a light that shines through the chest cavity. I love the parts usage of this particular Technic element that's normally used for wheels and whatnot, but it works really well as a reactor-like build. I think it looks really cool on this model. And of course it can be fully closed up as well. Now these right here are kind of missile pods mounted on these shoulders. You can close the flaps on the missile pods too, and then really just open them up for deployment like so. So it's a really fun and interesting mech with a lot of play possibilities. And all in all, I actually am a big fan of how this build turned out. I think that if this was actually made in 2022, it would have been a fantastic build because they could have made use of the brand new mech joints. But as it is right now, for a mech that probably was supposed to come out around 2019 or 2020, it's probably one of the best ones that they could have done at the time, although it already is pretty dated. So the minifigures here are two different figures. They are actually exclusive to the set. This one right here is kind of the main character or focus character for LEGO Overwatch. This is the Tracer figure in a brand new outfit. She's using the same white guns that were used previously in the hairpiece, but as you can see, there is a new printed piece on the back here to represent the exhaust coming out of the back, which is a really cool addition. And the head is actually double-sided, so you get two different facial expressions, which can be seen right here, a slightly angrier one on the back. The second figure included is May, who appears to be a healer type character. Now personally, I do not play Overwatch, so I'm not too familiar with the characters, but it is a nice design. It is a brand new mold for the headpiece here with some nice colored detail on the top there. And it also includes a little bit of what appears to be like a drone or maybe a health stim-like droid, which you can see right here, also featuring a brand new print on the BB-8 style head. It's really nice to get these special minifigures with the set, and honestly, I'm just kind of bummed that this set was never actually released as an official retail set because I do know a lot of people who are bigger fans of Overwatch than I am definitely would have wanted to have this set. As it is right now, though, it is a very interesting oddity in LEGO history. It's pretty rare that LEGO will straight up cancel or delay a set due to allegations going around with the company's workforce structure, although I think it totally makes sense. Blizzard Entertainment is not a good place to work. They're not doing really good stuff there. I don't think LEGO should be supporting them unless they get their act together. And who knows if this will change because Microsoft recently acquired Blizzard, so I don't know what LEGO will do in the future. Obviously, they're still making Minecraft sets. Microsoft owns Minecraft, so I think it would make sense that maybe they would continue Overwatch stuff in the future, or at least continue Blizzard Entertainment sets in the future. But as of right now, who knows exactly what will happen with the set when Overwatch 2 eventually comes out. If it even comes out, maybe we'll see a release of this, but as it is right now, it is a very rare canceled LEGO set. That's what makes it so special, so now let's move on to our next build. Now this model right here is kind of a sneak peek for an upcoming LEGO review video, because you see, this is not an official LEGO set. This is a mock designed by Zeo Creations on Instagram featuring an Ornithopter from the recent remake of Dune that came out just last year. I'm a big fan of Dune the book series as well as the original movie and of course the newer movie by Denis Villeneuve, so I had to create the LEGO model of the Ornithopter, which was kind of the main hero vehicle seen throughout the movie. Now, despite this being a mock, I did actually buy all the pieces off of both Bricks and Pieces and Bricklink, and what's really awesome is that this is actually held together really well. I'll save most of it for the review, but let's put it this way. This is probably one of the most swooshable custom LEGO models I have ever built. It's built really well, it's a very solid build, and I'll save the rest of my thoughts for the review. So as of right now, this is just a bit of a sneak peek for a future LEGO video. One last custom model that we will be reviewing much later on that will have a video of its own is this custom Lord of the Rings Sauron figure. It is a really cool posable figure that actually is created by one of the winners of the US LEGO Masters show, so really cool to see that. I really appreciate the amount of detail that went into this design, blending both Construction, CCBS, and LEGO system. It's a really cool model, and again, it will be getting its own separate review, so stay tuned for that. This is just such a cool model to pose and play around with, and you can really get this in all sorts of dynamic poses without really being afraid of it falling over too much. As it is right now, it's a really nice blend of all different systems of LEGO, featuring a ton of drum lacquered silver as well as just pearl silver elements, all sorts of really unique stuff all around, and I cannot wait to showcase my full review of this model because it is a really cool build. Of course though, that is for later, so let's now move on to our next model. Speaking of quick looks at sets that will be reviewed at a much later date, this is the 2021 exclusive LEGO employee gift. It is the LEGO Ninjago Temple of Celebrations, which celebrates the 10-year anniversary of LEGO Ninjago, which occurred in 2021. Again, this will be getting an entirely separate review, so I'm not going to spend too much time on it here. It is a really interesting build, really awesome to get an actual Ninjago-themed LEGO employee gift, and what's even cooler is that every single part in this set does exist in other sets. So if you don't want to actually pay the crazy prices to, say, get this fully sealed in the box, you can instead choose to just purchase all the pieces for it separately and just actually be able to build the model from your own parts. I did choose to get the box and the full experience with the instructions and everything, just because I wanted to showcase the full video on essentially how to put this together and how it comes right out of the box, but I absolutely did not need to, and it probably would have been cheaper to just buy the individual pieces. So if you are interested in this model, you can just get the pieces from Bricks and Pieces and Bricklink, and I definitely would recommend it because this is a really fun model. With that though, let's just quickly move on to the next model because, again, we're going to be doing a completely separate review for this build. On the topic of LEGO employee Christmas gifts, this is set number 400-2015. Borkum Riftgrund 1, this was LEGO's new plant or energy plant that they set up around the year of 2015 that they really wanted to show off and showcase that they were able to do that, and that's why it received a LEGO set for the employee gift. The reason why this is still fully sealed in the box is because I actually eventually plan to review every single one of the LEGO employee gift sets that they've really just ever done in general. That's why I'm keeping this sealed for the eventual review. Yes, this is another one that will be getting a video of its own, so I just wanted to quickly showcase it. It's honestly not one of the more interesting LEGO employee gifts. Personally, I think the quality has improved quite a lot. Personally, I think the quality of the LEGO employee gifts has improved quite a lot since this model, but it is still interesting to see how LEGO models have changed for the Christmas employee build since then, and it's also really cool to see just how good a condition that this box is in. It's in really good condition here, fully sealed up. This almost looks like it could be bought right off of store shelves, so a really cool model to get in hand. I can't wait to open this up and build it and showcase it for all of you. Next up, this is a discontinued LEGO model. It actually was the very first LEGO Creator Expert styled large-scaled car, the Volkswagen Beetle, which was introduced in the year of 2008. Now, I do want to make a note here. If you actually want to buy this vehicle as a full set, you're probably going to have to spend something close to $450 to $500 US. Now, personally, I did not feel like that was really all too fair for a car like this. And so I did it kind of the cheap way. You see, most of these parts are available just out of Bricks and Pieces or Bricklink for far cheaper than the original prices. And so I purchased most of these parts from the just LEGO's own Bricks and Pieces service, as well as parted it out on Bricklink, and ended up spending only around $100 to $150 on this car. So that was a savings of basically $300. So I'm pretty happy about that. However, there are a few things I do need to point out about this. You see, the 4x8 standard LEGO plates in dark blue were insanely expensive on Bricklink. It was stupidly expensive to buy them. And so I figured, why not just purchase the black ones, and maybe they're going to be tucked away in the model and people won't notice. Yeah. That's not really tucked away, so to be completely honest, I think that after this review, I eventually am going to have to bite the bullet and just go ahead and purchase those plates to really have the complete car. It almost kind of looks like the paint's been rusted because there's just a few spots here and there where you notice the dark blue plates have been replaced with dark black. I did the best I could to minimize this, but unfortunately you can really see it on the top of the car as well as in the front here, so I will be minimizing that. I'll be actually replacing it with my own pieces, but if you can get behind that, this is basically a pretty close replica, and I'm pretty happy with how it turned out, all things considered, because again, I spent a lot less on this model than I sure would have if I just wanted to actually manage to get all the pieces correctly and buy it as a set. That being said, even if I were to purchase all of the missing dark blue plates here and some of these silver wheel elements as well, I definitely would not be spending over $300. I don't think I would even spend over $50 or $60, so I think this is definitely an absolute win. I really appreciate being able to purchase this for such a low price, especially given that it is a very rare vehicle, and really the part out method absolutely worked for this build. So since this was the first creator expert car they ever did, the building techniques are fairly rudimentary. There's no sorts of curvature or specialized elements being used here, everything is just fully brick built. So it definitely feels like more of an older style of LEGO build than usual, but it certainly has its own unique charm. You can open the full hood upwards to reveal one of the tires. These tires are actually pretty rare. I kind of regret getting 5. I don't know why I got the full count there because this one's just kind of hidden away. But getting these specific tires here actually will set you back quite a lot. It's really surprising how certain aspects of this model have just gotten stupidly expensive, to the point where I just don't think it really makes too much sense to me. However, though, that being said, you can move it all the way onto the back here where the back actually does lift up as well. You can even see the engine on the inside of the car there, so I have managed to replicate all of the original detail from the original build. Other than the license plate being a sticker that went across multiple pieces, I did not actually want to put that on because it is a stamp, again, sticker, that goes across multiple pieces. Otherwise, though, this is a pretty faithful replica. I'm very happy to have this to finally complete my LEGO Creator Expert Car collection. I've actually been managing to buy up all the ones that I've been missing throughout the years. Very recently, I went to another used store and just got one of the final sets I needed to complete the collection. So with the addition of this and one more car, which you're going to be seeing in an upcoming video, I now own them all. With that though, let's now move on to another LEGO build. These fellows right here are from the LEGO Dinosaurs line. It was a line of canister LEGO buildable dinosaur sets, which included a ton of extra pieces to build different dinosaurs out of them. Now, these were the only 2 ones I did not own yet, and actually these are completing a lot of gaps in my LEGO Animals collection. These again were the only old style of dinosaurs I did not own yet, so really nice to be able to complete this, and actually the only dinosaurs in general I did not already own, besides the one super exclusive Jurassic World one, which only was released in Europe and given away as a prize and now is worth like $10,000. We don't talk about that one. I'll get that eventually. I don't want to spend $10K on a LEGO dinosaur yet. However, these ones are just the last 2 I needed for the rest of the standard retail release LEGO Dinosaurs collection, and this is the only LEGO Mosasaurus we've gotten to date. Now, at the time of the recording of this video, this is again the only Mosasaurus. Who knows if LEGO will do it for Jurassic World, maybe even later this year, but as of right now, this is the only one they've done. It's a really fun build because you can actually open and close the mouth all fully in different directions. You even can kind of rotate the jaw a little bit. It's made to be fully flexible, so it is a really fun mold, and you really do actually have the LEGO DNA sprinkled in throughout this model, despite it being an older build and definitely not quite as good as some of the more modern LEGO dinosaurs. This is just a fun dinosaur to have in general. The tongue right here is using a really unique piece of the LEGO crocodile upper jaw in red as the tongue. I just think that's really good parts usage, and all in all, this is a really great dinosaur that certainly is one of the most unique ones I've seen. Now, this did include a bunch of extra pieces, because if I wanted to, I could simply swap out all the different pieces here and create a different dinosaur. So let's just kind of try doing some of that. You'll notice that this is just a standard dinosaur body here. Take out the flippers. You can put this on right here, like so. Actually, I think it goes this way. And then you can stick this on right here. And there you have it. This is a completely different dinosaur. That is one thing I actually really appreciate about these dinosaur sets, is that they really were creative in trying to standardize the different elements to try and get as many different creatures as they could with limited space. Sure, that does leave a lot of awkward pieces left behind if you just want to build them in the main configurations. I definitely think the Mosasaurus is the most interesting one to make out of this particular kit, but as it is right now, I think it is a fun model. I like the inclusion of different pieces to make different dinosaurs, and I think that's just a fun addition in general. Moving onwards, we have another sand blue dinosaur. This is the T-Rex. These are actually 2 separate sets, but I just got them together because these were the 2 missing ones that I did not own yet. Now, this one can articulate very similarly to the Mosasaurus. You move the tail up and down, back and forth, side to side. You can move the legs back and forth as well. These are fully detachable and were used in the Jurassic Park 3 sets for the LEGO Studios tie-in line. And then you've got the T-Rex head, which is using the same upper jaw as the standard LEGO T-Rex, but it's just actually a much larger build for its time. Again, this was introduced for the LEGO Adventures Dino Island series, at least the upper jaw was, but here it is using a whole different new mold set for the LEGO Dinosaurs 2003 line. I definitely do prefer the more modern style of dinosaurs that LEGO has done more recently. I do think that they have been kind of perfected in the LEGO style with the Jurassic World and Dino 2011 sets, but these are really fun to get, and I definitely do love the addition of just different pieces to transform them into different dinosaurs. Like, just like that, and he's a Spinosaurus. That did not take much changing around, but I actually do appreciate that they managed to include it. All in all, these are really fun LEGO models. I like the amount of detailing that goes into each of the printing to make these completely distinct. They definitely have their old school charm to them, and with that, we can move on to our next set. Moving onwards, we have a classic LEGO Star Wars set, one that hasn't been remade to this day despite many fans wanting it to be remade. This is the TIE Bomber. Now, I actually was kind of surprised I didn't own this. I kind of forgot to get it, and it just kind of slipped my mind. I'm trying to own all the Star Wars sets, and honestly, this kind of came as a shock that I did not own it, so I managed to get this set. It actually was pretty pricey for what it is. I was kind of surprised at how expensive this had gotten, but I guess it makes sense given that it is the only official LEGO TIE Bomber we've ever gotten. Funnily enough, I actually purchased the parts to build the Brickvault modified version of the TIE Bomber, which is a much better model, a much more modern model, so maybe that's why I felt like I already owned it, but yeah, this was one of the only ones I did not own yet, so TIE Bomber, here you go, a very classic LEGO Star Wars spaceship, and one that actually has been featured in some more recent episodes of LEGO Star Wars television, so nice to see it kind of make a resurgence. Maybe LEGO will consider revisiting it later on. Now this has a large cannon here to act as the bomb, so how it works is it's the Technic spring-loaded competition cannon. You just fire it here, these open up, and it just shoots out. It works really well. I actually am pretty happy with that because I wasn't quite sure how good it would be at launching the cannon, especially when closed up behind the flaps, but no, it just blasts right through the flaps there with basically no resistance. So really cool to see that being integrated as a play feature. We also have a bomb dropping play feature here. If you notice on the bottom of the model, there are a few open slots, and these are specifically meant for bombs to be dropped. So the way that this works is that this is actually kind of on a rubber band. So you pull this outwards on the back, this whole platform slides open, and the way it works is that you have your bombs up here, pull this backwards, and boom, there goes the bombs to drop on your enemies, and you just reload them back at the top here. It's a fun play feature, but it works pretty well. Of course, the cockpit can be opened too, just using the standard TIE Pilot at its time. This was a very, very simple minifigure that's just using a very plain black Stormtrooper helmet with just some of the TIE Pilot markings on it. Certainly the ones made today are a lot more detail-oriented, but it was a nice, simple build for its time. Again, I do appreciate this because it definitely fits within the other LEGO TIE Fighters that came out around its era, although this is a very, very dated set, and come on LEGO, where's the remake for the TIE Bomber? Moving on though, we can take a look at our next set. And up next, we have what unfortunately is a bit of a disappointment for me. You see, this is the original LEGO Republic Gunship from 2002. You may be wondering though, why is this not built? You see, the set was advertised on Bricklink as being 99% complete. However, when I opened up the bag, I realized it was not 99% complete. I in fact did the exact math on the pieces missing. It was only 67.8% complete. That is quite unfortunate, and all the rare pieces were not included either. So you have these printed dishes here. You can see the printed dish, printed piece. No windscreen was included, so none of the transparent parts were included. Most of these stickered pieces were not included, so that was kind of a disappointment. Usually I'm used to Bricklink being pretty good. If they say it's 99% complete, I'm expecting like a stud or two to be missing, not most of the models. So that was a very unfortunate purchase. However, I did get very lucky because I do already own this set. I was actually given this set back in 2002 when it first came out, but it's in pieces in my LEGO collection, and I kind of just got lazy to find all the pieces and get it together because I just have so many pieces dumped in different bins that I just figured why not just buy one of my own. But now, this is serving as good motivation for me to go through my LEGO collection and find all of the pieces that are exclusive to this model and put it together. So this is a project for when I get home. I'm currently not home in my LEGO collection, so this is gonna have to wait. With that, let's move on to something a little more interesting than a pile of parts. Next up, we have one of the LEGO Disney Princess book sets. This one was surprisingly discontinued or out of stock already. I tried to get it at lego.com, but they had it was sold out, like it was completely gone. So I had to get this off of Bricklink. I'm gonna be completely honest, I got this to build with my girlfriend. I didn't really have any vested interest in this particular set, but actually kind of grows on me. And what's really cool about these storybook sets is that you can open them all up and it has a full diorama. Buying the set actually convinced me to buy every single other storybook in existence. So now I own them all. Thank you, I guess, because this is actually a pretty fun set. I love the addition of extra stickers to populate the inside of the book. It's a really cool gimmick style set that actually does include a ton of different printed pieces, and I really appreciated a lot more and the gimmick style of the Disney Princess storybook sets after building it. And look at that. This is a whole piece that fits over a mini doll or minifigure head. You can see that right here. This just comes right off, so you can reveal the prints underneath. Now that is a pretty fun feature, and I do like the mold for the beast here. This set here, again, super simple. It's one of the more modern sets. Usually my Bricklink hauls are comprised of either custom mocks or older discontinued sets, but this was a more modern one that I just managed to miss out barely on Shop at Home. So that's how it works. Closes all the way up like a book, and there you go, almost like a little pop-up. It's a fun build. Moving onwards to a completely separate theme, but also kind of fantasy-oriented, this is the LEGO Kingdoms Joust. It was released in 2011 to coincide with the LEGO Kingdoms sub-theme, and I don't know why I don't own this. For whatever reason, I was not the biggest fan of LEGO Castle when it first came out. I never was a big Castle guy until recently when I kind of became obsessed with LEGO Castle and owning every single LEGO Castle set. So I was going through my catalog, realized I didn't own this, so I just figured why not just get this and pull the trigger to get a really well-detailed LEGO Castle. Now, it doesn't seem too impressive right now, at least compared to some of the more modern LEGO stuff that they've done, even with modern LEGO Castles, but for its time, this was one of the most detailed castle sets we had ever got in general. I'm really actually impressed by the amount of detailing that went into the stone walls here, the stained glass window, the guard posts down here, even the market stalls and everything really feels authentic to a full-on castle experience. And while this is focused on a large gateway to a much larger castle, you still have a bit of civilian influences here, such as the building here being very much in the European style of architecture. You've got the stand right here for people to watch the games, and in my opinion, best of all, you had a modern remake of a Black Falcon Trooper. Now, this horse actually is one of the rarest LEGO animals. We'll be talking about it in a future video on the top 10 rarest LEGO animals, but this was one of the first times that LEGO was actually referencing an older vintage style of castle sub-theme. The Black Falcons were one of the first castle sub-themes, and this was one of the first times we actually got them in a more modern LEGO set. Nowadays, the Black Falcons are very popular because of the recently released Medieval Blacksmith, which brought the Black Falcon sub-theme into modern times. But this was another remake of it. It's a brand new printed shield for the Black Falcon crest. What's even cooler is that we get 3 of them in the set, one at the front here, one for the figure to hold, and one right here. So that is really cool. I love it when LEGO references older LEGO sub-themes in their builds, so I really appreciate getting it in the Kingdoms Joust set here. Now, setting aside the actual joust element of things, using just the standard Kingdoms Knight, we can take a look at some of the buildings here. This right here is one of the building showcases for the King and Queen. You can see that this came with a fully detailed 2 minifigures here with some nice printing for the King's torso, as well as one of the larger Lion Knights or Kingdoms Knight shields here. Super simple build, but it is nice for what it is. Moving onwards, we have just 2 stalls for the knights to get ready. Very simple builds here. And then you actually have these wall elements. Now, what's kind of cool is that I think the way that this is set up is that if you specifically wanted to buy multiples of the set, you could actually have a fully enclosed courtyard. So if I were to go out and buy like 4 or 5 of these, you could actually cause these to fully close out, because the way they work is that the Technic pins can actually connect to other gateways. So if I got a ton of different gateways, you could actually make this a fully enclosed build, which I think would look really cool. I wonder if anyone's ever done that. Let me know in the comments if you've seen someone do that, because I'm not about to go out and buy like 5 of these to try it. I mean, I would, I just don't want to build 5 of them because frankly, the build's pretty tedious just stacking gray pieces together, but I'd love to see it if someone just got a bunch of these, went crazy and made a full display, because it is a really fun build. rotating around. There's not a ton of interior detail, but there is a good amount, enough that there's enough to play around with. You can see the stained glass window here with a book on a pedestal, so you've got some nice medieval display there. Some of the carpeting down here to add some bits of texture. You also have a bit of a dressing area, presumably for the queen up there, something like that. And I also really like the parts usage right here, with the frogs being used as table legs. It's certainly a modern building technique that's honestly kind of ahead of its time, given that this came out in 2011. And you can see the rat with a cheese up at the top there as well. All in all, this is probably one of the best, or probably actually not even just probably, this is the best Kingdom set that they did. I'm really happy with it, and certainly hope that LEGO will please revisit Castle in the future. I'm not the only person saying this. A lot more people more passionate than me about Castle are asking LEGO to please bring Castle back. We'll see what they decide to do. Maybe this could correlate with the 90th anniversary build, although if I had to guess, that one's probably going to be space. But sure hoping that LEGO will get more Castle original stuff out in the future, because this is a really nice model. With that though, let's now move on to our next LEGO set. Let's now move on from LEGO Castle to Hogwarts Castle. This is actually the most recent set on this list. It came out literally just last year. This is the LEGO Hogwarts Gryffindor Dorms. Now I am kind of annoyed at this set because this was a free gift if you spent a certain amount of money on Harry Potter. I think it was around $100 or something like that, some high amount of money on LEGO Harry Potter, but they introduced the free gift during a time period where no new LEGO Harry Potter sets had been released for a while. So the thing about me is that I typically tend to purchase all of my LEGO immediately on day one when they come out. So that's why it's kind of annoying when LEGO does free gifts like this, which are specifically meant to get people to spend more on LEGO Harry Potter, when they don't have a new Harry Potter set to coincide with it. Now, I can't complain too much. I respect the business. It is objectively in LEGO's favor to introduce sets like this when there are no new Harry Potter sets coming out. Let's say, for example, a brand new direct-to-consumer $250 Harry Potter set like the Hogwarts Icon set came out, and they made this GWP to coincide with it. Sure, a lot of people would be excited to get it, but people were probably going to buy that brand new set anyway. This is not going to convince them to buy the set, or maybe it'll convince some people, but not most people. Whereas if they release this during a time window where no new Harry Potter sets came out, that would spur some people who might have been holding off on buying LEGO Harry Potter sets to actually buy these sets for themselves. So I understand the hustle, but that's just kind of sad for me, because then that means I have to buy this on the aftermarket because I had no reason to buy any Harry Potter sets that I already owned. So this actually doubles as a display card for the LEGO Harry Potter Hogwarts trading cards, or Famous Wizards trading cards. If you aren't aware, for LEGO Harry Potter's 10-year anniversary, they actually put out some of these wizard cards. They're essentially randomized in different sets. You don't know which one you're going to get in different sets, but they're different prints of famous wizards, and this is specifically meant to display them all. So if you have them all 16 of them can fit on this plate here. You slide it into the dormitory there, and there you go. It is both a dorm and a display feature. Little clunky to mesh those two things together, but it's all right. And of course, this is specifically built to fit in with the rest of the 2021 revamped Harry Potter Hogwarts Castle system, which is why it is literally just a room. It's a box with some pins on the side and the plates on the top to allow it to be stacked into any sort of module. It came with Harry and Ron in their child forms from either episodes 1 or 2 of Harry Potter, so I do appreciate the inclusion there, but again, it's a very simple build. I just had to get it because I'm a Harry Potter completionist. With that though, let's now move on. Next up here, we have an absolutely massive LEGO model. This was the Creator Expert LEGO Big Ben featuring the landmark in London. Now, I was on a bit of a London fix because I had just recently visited London quite a couple of times actually in the past few months, so I figured why not go ahead and purchase all the missing London sets I did not own, starting with this Big Ben set. So this was, I will admit, an incredibly repetitive build. It was very tedious to line them up one by one. If you notice, every single one of these is following the exact same structure, but to be honest, once it all came together, I think it was all worth it. It's a kind of LEGO set that really would only make sense to purchase if you maybe are a fan of LEGO architecture or sculptures or even just London as a landmark itself, because otherwise this has a lot going on for a lot of little tiny pieces that you have to stack together. Now what's nice is that this is actually fully detailed to an extent, or even around the back. You can see the windows on the back here actually are fully included, as well as even some side detailing, so this is pretty much covered all around. Now you might be wondering what is with the clock on the back of the wall here. Well, it's actually really cool. You can spin this clock, and going like that will actually spin the hands on the much larger clock. All 4 hands will rotate in tandem, so it is a really nice and fun feature, and if you move it slowly enough, you can actually kind of make it seem like it is telling the time. So there you have it. This is the Big Ben set, a very, very tedious set to build. I don't necessarily even know if I would recommend this unless you actually are a fan of the building or are just a fan of London in general, because this was a crazy complicated build to put together. Just a lot of stacking of different plates, but the final product is really impressive. Speaking of London landmarks, I had to also get the Tower Bridge. This is from a slightly older Bricklink order from a couple of weeks ago, but I figured I'd include it in this haul because I haven't mentioned it before. This is one of the older LEGO Creator Expert sculpture sets, again featuring a London landmark, and man, if that last build was repetitive, this one is arguably even worse, because as you can see, these 2 towers are identical. And if you really zoom in, you may notice that they involve stacking little cheese slopes over and over and over again. This comes with an insane amount of cheese slopes to stack, and again, this was kind of at a time of LEGO's history when they were just really doing these really impressive large-scale builds without really paying too much attention to how tedious the actual build would be. So this is what it is. It's not my favorite LEGO build, but it certainly looks really good on display and will look amazing next to the London Tower. Speaking of large-scale LEGO buildings, this was the final LEGO modular building I did not own yet, the massive and incredibly rare Town Hall from 2013. This uses the relatively rare dark orange color to form the sides of the walls, which is a really unique touch. Now, I do want to note here that this model actually was pieced together from Bricks and Pieces and Bricklink. You see, if I wanted to purchase this model, it would have cost me around $800 for the full set. Now, personally, I did not feel like this was worth $800. So instead, I shaved off $400. I instead spent around $300, I think around $350 including shipping, on all of the bricks here, combining Bricks and Pieces, some existing parts from my own collection, and just a few miscellaneous Bricklink orders. Specifically for the clock piece right there, the Town Hall exclusive shield here, which again I did have to order from Bricklink, and just a few other pieces here and there that I did have to specifically order. Otherwise though, everything was pretty much just readily available on LEGO Bricks and Pieces. Somewhat unsurprisingly, the most expensive part of the model was just getting these pieces in clear here. These are the garage door pieces that are pretty rare to find in clear. They were some of the rarest pieces to find on this particular model, but everything else, surprisingly, even some of the dark orange pieces, were still readily in production. Now, unfortunately, it is LEGO Bricks and Pieces, so you may notice the doors are not attached. I will be fixing that with a Bricklink order coming very soon. It has not arrived yet, so as of right now, I am just waiting on that to be fixed. They should have come with my Bricks and Pieces order, but they did not. So, moving aside here, this actually can be fully separated. What's nice, like this, with all of the other modular buildings, can actually be fully played around with inside. There is a full interior, all of the floors separate. So actually, let's start on the top floor and make this easier for ourselves. Up here we have a meeting room with a large chair for whoever's in charge can sit on the chair there. We also have a bit of a setup for a globe here, which again I'm also awaiting pieces for, but that's essentially supposed to just be a globe. And we even have an elevator setup that can be opened like so. Going on to this next level here, there's just a little bit of a carpet, a nice little office space here with a different kind of setup for the office, and just another person's desk there, which is a little bit smaller. Moving down to the main area right here, you can see a podium for whoever's in charge of the town to give some speeches. You can see some other associated areas for maybe a desk clerk right there, handling money and whatnot, and just a nice little area for the minifigures to play around in. Now, what's really awesome is that I did mention there is an elevator, and yes, this actually is a working elevator that goes throughout the entire building. It's super simple, but it works very well. So how this works is you move this up, and you can slide the elevator all the way up. This is the elevator. It's literally just a platform, but the entire back of the building is left open. So if I actually put all the bricks back, you can see that there is a slot running through the whole building for the elevator to go through. It's not the most visually appealing of things. It kind of does look a little awkward, but it does allow you to lock the elevator at certain floors here, so you can move it up to this floor, and it's locked so it is at certain floors. And that just goes all the way right down. You got your little Tower of Terror right there. That being said, though, this is a pretty basic build. I will say that this is a very, very simple building for what it is. LEGO has certainly improved their building techniques for the modular buildings since this model came out. I am a much bigger fan of LEGO modular buildings when they try to do something a little bit different than just a large rectangular building. It was really easy to put together because it was just stacking bricks on top of each other, but I appreciate the variety we get today, especially in stuff like, say, the Boutique Hotel, which has a completely different style of studs on the side architecture. That being said, though, this is one of my favorite aesthetically speaking modular buildings. Love the dark orange color, and it definitely deserves a place at my LEGO collection. And I'm so happy to finally own all of the modular buildings. Moving to the complete other end of the spectrum from LEGO adult themed oriented display, we have a LEGO play set here. This is the LEGO Legends of Chima Frozen Spike set. Surprisingly enough, I was at home, I was looking through all my speedors, and apparently I was missing two. It was this one and one other one, which we are about to see, so I figured, why not just get them from Bricklink? I have no idea how or why I missed out on them. For all I know, maybe they're sitting at my house and I just didn't see them, but yeah, for whatever reason, I did not own this. So this is fully sealed. I'm quite excited to crack it open because Chima speedors were actually pretty good gimmick sets for what they were. I definitely like the older style better. The newer ones that they did for 2014, I wasn't the biggest fan of the aesthetic design here, just kind of making the prints, instead of being molded, mostly just, well, prints, but I do actually appreciate the speedors for what they were. I honestly kind of think they're a little more fun than Ninjago's spinners, just in my opinion, so I am very excited to open this up, just building a brand new Legends of Chima set for the first time in a long time. So let's get cracking. Alright, so here we have the Ice Spike set. That's Voom Voom the Vulture there. It's kind of refreshing just building a Chima set. Reminds me of simpler times for LEGO original themes, but essentially the way this is supposed to work is you've got a little ramp here. He makes a jump and knocks this over. Chima introduced this brand new little gimmick rock piece that really was only used in this era of Speedor sets. You hit it gently, and it will pop open and a ball will pop out. So that's how that worked. It's a super simple play feature, but it really is just a rock that pops open because of a rubber band right here. It's really simple, but really was only used in just these sets. Although I honestly feel like LEGO could have gotten a lot more mileage out of this piece, and even a few more pieces as well. So the way speedors work, in case you aren't aware, or at least this one works, you stick the ripcord in here, give it a nice pull, and these will go flying. So these actually go really fast, pretty far as well, so they made for really fun toys, specifically because of the metal flywheel here. It's a really fun set to play with, and while aesthetically speaking, again, I am not the biggest fan of this art style for the speedors. I really loved the older style of speedors they did in 2013, which had real molded detail for each animal. This one, at least, I guess, kind of makes sense because they wanted to sort of standardize these speedors for this final wave to make it a little bit cheaper and easier for kids to make. Although I will say the older ones were far superior. Now this does introduce a few extra pieces. These Technic pieces were actually new for this year, although they definitely are very common now in Technic and even Bionicle stuff, but they were introduced for the Speedor stuff to specifically mount things on the side. I like the mold for the wings here, again, only used in the Speedors, but these could really work out quite well for, say, Construction stuff or Bionicle stuff, so I'm a big fan of these particular pieces because really anything that connects via Technic holes is a plus to me. It's a fun build, it's super simple, and really this is kind of where you can see the budget for Chima was starting to decline a little bit. This is just the same as this, except he is holding weapons in this one and not in this picture. That being said, I do actually appreciate the inclusion of the cards to really make it seem like you're building different parts of the set that correspond to the cards. This one here is for the minifigure. This one is for the minifig with weapons. This here is for the rock with the ball inside of it. This one right here is for the speedors itself. And finally, this is the ice spike that you actually build right here. It all comes together pretty nicely for this model, and I respect the amount of effort that went into making different unique cards for builds like these. And again, the ice spikes themselves are specifically meant to be knocked apart. It's just kind of a fun thing and reminds me of the Lego City Stunts line that they're doing nowadays, which are the flywheel motorcycles that are in very, very similar design to these. With that though, let's now move on to our next set. So our next Speedor set was also from the year of 2014. However, this actually came out before the previous one. It was released in conjunction of the Season 2 Outlands wave. And you can see here, this is one of the villain vehicles for the Bat faction, specifically Blista the Bat. It came with 5 different trading cards, much like the other Speedors, which thankfully were in the older style where they were actually putting a little bit more effort into the artwork and the styling of it, having their own unique names for each of the cards. But of course, the main attraction is the build and vehicle itself. I mentioned earlier that I really did prefer this style of Speedors, which I definitely do maintain. I really appreciate the detailing and molded detail on the sides of each one of these different pieces. And again, this particular piece was made for the Wolf faction, but it works perfectly well for the Bats because it has the teeth at the front that really does capture the Bat aesthetic. Now the ripcord here can be actually moved on the top here. How it works is you pull the ripcord, watch that wheel spin, and away it goes. So there's a little bit of an obstacle here. You have this little jumping platform with a ramp with some rubber pieces. So what you're supposed to do is see if you can clear the wing jump here. Let's just see if we can actually capture that right now. Maybe, may or may not be successful, but let's get this all lined up, get the ripcord in, and see how this goes. So the way this works is you yank the ripcord out and then you launch it and get it ready to go. So really, really simple build, but I do actually appreciate the style of gimmick sets that they were doing for Chima like these. I really, again, appreciate the aesthetic of this particular era of Speedors, and I certainly am happy to finally own them all. I don't know why I didn't own them all previously, so thankfully, now we do. With that though, let's now move on to the next model.
One next setup here that I just wasn't able to finish building by the time of recording this video is the LEGO Sydney Opera House. This was one of the larger creator expert style sets. It surprisingly was not an architecture set, but it was just one of the ones I did not own. I personally have been looking to hopefully visit Australia sometime later this year, given that borders will reopen, and that's why I wanted to get this set, because I also think it's just a really good model in general. Here's a quick unboxing of the set itself, but obviously since it's not built, not too much I have to say with it, and we can now move on.
Now these two sets here are some of the rarest LEGO sets in my collection. You see, before LEGO Ideas was, well, Ideas, it used to be called LEGO Kuso, and it was limited to only 10,000 copies only in Japan. So LEGO Ideas actually started off as LEGO Kuso in the region of Japan. We could not get these sets anywhere else in the world, and these were really, really special. So this is pretty interesting because these are the very first 2 LEGO Ideas sets that ever came out, and they are finally completing my collection of every single LEGO Ideas / Kuso set that they ever did. So first of all, here we have the Shinkai 6500 submarine. This was released in 2011. What is really cool about this order in particular is that whatever Bricklink seller I bought this from specifically included these plaques right here that are just custom made. These did not come in these sets themselves, but they actually included them as display plaques to really make these feel extra special. I am honestly really impressed that they actually added this extra attention to detail here, and now this kind of makes me want to make these plaques for all of the different idea sets because, I mean, come on, I've already got 2 of them here. These are just really well done, really make them feel like truly special, and these definitely came from a true collector. Now these sets are especially rare, starting off with this one, because they actually do have some exclusive pieces to them. First of all, here, obviously, the sticker sheet is exclusive, featuring the actual name of the submarine in Japanese, as well as the stickers on the sides here. However, what makes this set really, really special is this particular piece in orange. Believe it or not, look it up. This is the only set that came with the orange tail fin. For whatever reason, LEGO never released another set with this piece in orange, making this one of the most expensive single LEGO pieces. There's a lot of copies of this set on Bricklink
Bricklink, who've basically recreated it with replica stickers and just a different color for the tail fin. This tail fin is very important to get in orange because it is authentic to this set itself, so I figured I had to get the real deal. I actually had these shipped. I believe these actually did come from Japan, so I did get these shipped in from Japan. It took forever to get here, but I am so happy to finally own the first 2 Ideas sets. What's special about the Hayabusa satellite here is that this actually specifically came with 2 different sets of stickers. You see, whoever collected these was such a diehard fan that they actually put on replica stickers. These are not the original stickers from the LEGO set. However, they included the brand new sticker sheet in mint condition, so they actually did not want to waste these stickers from the official set. They instead got replicas to put on the display model, and then they have these sticker sheets set aside. So that is a whole other level of dedication to collecting that honestly I probably won't ever reach. Obviously, I wasn't about to peel these off and waste the replica stickers because they work just fine, so I'm leaving them on for now. I'll probably apply the real ones once I get home and I actually have access to these particular pieces, so I don't just waste these stickers right here because I think they're pretty good replicas, but obviously the real ones are a little bit more shiny. And again, these are pretty rudimentary builds. Nothing really too special about them. What is special is their status in the history of LEGO as the very first 2 Idea sets, which kind of spawned one of LEGO's most popular themes today. So really love having these in my collection. Let's now move on. Speaking of adult-created fan LEGO models that eventually became official LEGO sets, these are the final Bricklink A-Full Designer Program models I did not own. So some background behind these. Essentially in 2019, before LEGO even acquired Bricklink and owned it, they decided to partner with Bricklink for the A-Full Designer Program, where they invited adult fans of LEGO to draw from LEGO's existing part catalog and make official LEGO sets, in conjunction with Bricklink. The result were some fantastically detailed LEGO models designed by A-Fulls and sold as official sets through a limited run program. Now, for whatever reason, in 2019, I did not pay much attention to these. I think I got one of them, and it has been very painful tracking them all down because these have truly appreciated in value significantly. So all of these sets include an exclusive LEGO brick that actually specifically references the LEGO A-Full Designer Program and the 90th anniversary of LEGO, so that is really nice to see there. But of course, these did also all come sealed, and what's even cooler is that every single set, the packaging had a special backdrop, so you can see each of the individual sets against the backdrop that they're essentially supposed to be designed out of. It's a really nice touch that really makes these models feel truly deluxe. And with that, let's jump right into the models themselves. This right here is the fire truck. It's the classic antique fire truck designed by Boone Langston, who you may know from LEGO Masters. It's actually really big. This was surprisingly a large model. It's a little hard to tell the scale of just by looking at it right here, but let's get a LEGO minifig here, for example. Here's a random LEGO minifig I just grabbed that was nearby, and you can see the scale here. It's actually really big compared to the size of just a single minifigure. He only barely goes up to right about half the wheel here, so it's a huge model. I'm a really big fan of the way that this one turned out, and this is just a really detailed LEGO engine that truly feels like it belongs in the Creator Expert vehicle lineup. Now, of course, while building this model, much like many of the other A-Full design models, there were a few moments where there were just some strange little things that I knew that LEGO designers would never actually do, just a few things that maybe didn't make it the most solid of builds, or just a few different part connections that felt a little bit awkward to me, but for the most part, this truly kind of felt the most like building a standard LEGO set. It has a lot of detail, including this removable ladder here, so you can really just use the ladder as a normal ladder. It definitely is a much larger scale for minifigs. Maybe the larger size Technic figures are good for this that were released back in the day, but all in all, it's a really nicely detailed fire engine. What I really like is that you can lift this up and see the inside for the interior detail of the engine as well. They did not need to include these, but they definitely did, just to add that extra bit of detail, very similarly to the other Creator Expert cars, which similarly have engines kind of just tucked away and hidden. Moving onwards to the back here, it is pretty empty around the back. This was probably the most tedious part of the build, just kind of layering down different tiles. LEGO probably would not do this in an official set, but I do actually appreciate the amount of variability that we get in the tiles here. Really just makes it feel that much more realistic, and all in all, this is definitely one of the best designed LEGO A-Full Designer Program models, especially if you're into large-scale cars. This is a model for you. With that though, let's just move on to the next A-Full Designer Program set because we have a few of them here.
The next A full designer program set is this charming little hotshot arcade system. Essentially, this is supposed to be a little bit of a stand at a carnival. It's a pretty extensive stand, but it is just a carnival stand where you can essentially compete to win prizes. In here you can see all sorts of different targets and prizes to be won, from trophies to stuffed animals to guitars to little cups to hearts, all sorts of different things that you can win by taking up one of the rifles mounted on the side here and testing your luck at hitting the targets. It includes a stall worker as well as a father and son to actually participate in the event itself. And what I actually really like about this is that this includes several of these special curvy tile pieces. These were panel pieces that were introduced for stuff like the Lego Batman movies, but they're really interesting builds to have as panels, and they included a whopping 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 of them. So awesome to get 8 of those very rare and specialized pieces in a single Lego model. I'm a big fan of how this all turned out, and while it does seem like a simple model on the surface, I actually really like the attention to detail. The rifle is built really well for a large-scale model, and the wording here definitely feels almost like a Lego modular building. Sure, these are a little bit wobbly, they're really just mounted on a few studs, and there are again a few connections here that do feel like this very clearly was designed by an AFOL and not an official Lego designer, not a professional Lego builder, but for what it is, I really do appreciate the amount of detail that you can see here. It does have a fully detailed interior and really does feel at home at a carnival. I think this would look great next to, say, the Ferris wheel or the roller coaster, just to really pad out the Lego theme park lineup. Next up here on the A-Full Designer program, we have the simply titled Bikes set. This depicts a rechargeable rack for bikes to be rented, as well as a little truck to carry around different bikes so people can rent bikes. Now, I'm going to be completely honest, I am not the biggest fan of the way that this particular build turned out. There's a lot of just weird things going on with this build that really does make it feel very fragile. I'm kind of surprised that this got past a lot of the review processes to make these into official sets, because this is easily one of the most fragile and strangely built models, although it is very charming, I will give it that. I'm really directing most of the criticisms towards this bike charging or holder station right here. You see, first of all, the instruction manuals instruct you to take the headlight of the bike and place it into the stud here. Now, unfortunately, this just does not fit. It is not designed to be placed into the stud, and in fact, it will destroy the entire build if you attempt to do so. Believe me, I tried. And as soon as one of these comes off, all of them will come off, because you see, these are just Lego Technic pieces here. They're just interfacing with studs, which make them really easy to pop off. It's not an illegal technique, but using it like this is not something any Lego designer would really ever do just because of how fragile it is. I've accidentally knocked this off many times, and it is very frustrating to put back. The other thing is that these are really just held in place by cheese slopes. So when you put it back, they just flop all over the place. They're held in very well now because the cheese slopes are specifically made to do that. But let's say remove one of these, this will just kind of flop around. So these will flop around, and you will have to remove every single cheese slope and rebuild it if you manage to pop all these off. It's just kind of a strange build with different things going on here. Although I will say it is certainly very unique. It does feel the most out of all of these like building someone else's mock, but I can definitely see this on the side of a Lego City street, and I think that this would work really well with, say, the road plate system for the 2021 and 2022 city sets. I really do love the lettering for bikes here as well. I just think it's pretty clever to use these as large bubble letters. It just comes across as very charming to me. This bike's lettering is a little less charming when you have to do it 2 more times in the identical manner on the side of the truck here. As you can see here, it has it on this side and on the other side, so you just kind of have to do it twice. It does hold quite a lot of bikes. As you can see here, a ton of bikes are included in the set, which is really nice. And you actually get, this is just kind of a standard truck. It feels the closest to what you would see in a standard Lego City set, except for the fact that it has these special signs. That's not everything included in the set though, because aside from these bikes right here, we have another person kind of on a separate bike. It's a red bike here that is both a bike as well as a trolley-like build. Not really quite sure what exactly to call this, but this was before Lego introduced the bike back adapter. They actually now have a piece that's built just like this with a clip at the front to clip on stuff just like this. But this is a pretty clever build that just makes use of the standard bike element for someone biking around different grocery supplies, featuring a whole assortment of Lego food.
All in all, this is a pretty charming set. This was made by a mockist in Amsterdam, so it totally makes sense. During all my visits to Amsterdam, I think one of the most iconic things is just seeing people getting around on different bikes and just seeing bikes literally everywhere. So this kind of reminds me of Amsterdam. It's a very charming Lego set, and I can see why the Lego builder chose to make this because it really does, of course, hit home with all the bikes. With that though, there's one final A-Full Designer Program set, so let's move on to that. Last up for the Bricklink A-Full Designer Program, we have the aptly named Science Tower. This is a tower that essentially is supposed to celebrate different eras of scientific discoveries in history. It looks really nice from the outside. It's a really unique Lego model. We haven't really gotten anything like this before as an official Lego set, but what's really special is the interior. But first, let's take a look starting from the very bottom. You've got a lake down here that goes underneath the bridge. Some nice brick-built detail there. Very simple, but still nice to see. You've got some plants being grown on the side here. And oh, look at that. We've got a function here. We'll take a look at that in 1 second. Moving on upwards, there's some nice rock work on the side here. I like the way that these windows are made with the bar in between. Really just gives it a unique look and feel. And you even have a nicely designed tree on the side here, which really just adds to the experience. Moving upwards, we have a door as well as just some more aspects of the tower itself. I like the layering of coloration being used for the tower. And then finally, you have an action feature up here. You twist this knob and you can spin around the telescope up top there. So you just twist this around. You can spin that around 360 degrees to really just see in all directions, which makes sense with the backdrop being a very starry night. Now this over here is just kind of another science-like detail. This is almost like a steampunk type thing. You've just got a propeller sticking up the top there. It's a really simple thing to have, but I just like the inclusion of it. Kind of just ties the whole thing together. With that though, let's now move on to the actual inside of the tower, which is really nice to see. You have a engine inside here, so you spin this right here, and this engine actually does fully work, which is really cool. I like the inclusion here. You've got the solar system gimbal set up here, a record player, sewing machine, the quilt right there for writing, some lights over here. As we move upwards, there is a cute dog with a bowl right there. I guess he's not really a scientific creation, but maybe if you want to think about genetics or dog breeding or whatnot, but that's just a cute dog in general to include. You have some more scientific instruments here, which you can see alongside the wall here. The sextant right there, as well as some cups and potions or fire or some chemicals, as you can see up there. And then moving on upwards, you can see some of the machinery with the gearing for the telescope there, plus even more inventions and a place for these scientists to explore. So this is a really fun model to have in general, packed full of details, and just is a super unique model to have in general that honestly feels like a steampunk model come to life. The final set here is the LEGO Scooby-Doo Mystery Machine from 2015. Now, for whatever reason, when LEGO Scooby-Doo first came out in 2015, I did not buy a single set. Now, personally, I'm not the biggest fan of the cartoon, not because I think it's bad, I just haven't seen it. I didn't really grow up on it, so I guess I didn't really have a connection to Scooby-Doo. But as the years went on, I started to really appreciate the sets as being some sort of semi-original LEGO spooky theme, and of course, I had to get the Mystery Machine as the most iconic vehicle from pop culture. I just think it's a really iconic vehicle in general. I don't know why I passed up on it on the first time, and of course, this has become really expensive. So I got this set without minifigures because eventually, maybe down the line, I will manage to get the entire gang, but I'm really just focusing on the builds and not the minifigures this time around. Now, what's nice about this is that there's actually a good amount of detail stored within. You can open up the back here and see all sorts of different control panels and detailings, even a Scooby snack sandwich right here. I think that's supposed to be some sort of a way to cook the sandwich as well, so this actually has quite a lot of details packed in for such a small vehicle. I do really like owning this. I am again regretting not getting the other LEGO Scooby-Doo sets. Maybe sometime down the line I will own them all. The only other one I own is the largest one, which was the Vampire Manor or the Haunted House. Everything else I do not own yet, so I will own them at some point. Looking forward to that, but as it is right now, this is just the standard Mystery Machine, which also came with an evil glowing tree here. It's just an evil tree come to life, which is secretly a robot tree controlled by the back here, which is just meant to scare the kids and to prey on the townsfolk because it's someone trying to apparently rob from them or something. With that though, we can now move on because there's one more, well, I guess two more very special things in this haul. Y'all saw the thumbnail, so you know what's coming.
Before we move on to the very special thing, there's one kind of super random Bricklink order. These are just standard pieces I need for Bionicle building, but the sword in here is actually incredibly special, and I think it's a little more special than people may think. You see, this is a LEGO Nexo Knight sword, and you may be thinking, I've seen this before. Have you though? Because this was only given away in a Toys R Us buildable stand event with this specific mold of sword. This dual blend of sword with transparent blue and silver was never released in any official LEGO set. It isn't even listed on Bricklink. It is so obscure that Bricklink does not have a listing for it. I only discovered it because Brickset has a listing for it, and when I looked on Bricklink, the promotional set is not even on it. So super rare piece. And I got really lucky because, as I mentioned, this is not on Bricklink, so you might be wondering, well, how on earth did I even get it? Well, you see, someone had this listed as a custom item on Bricklink, or a different molding of the existing sword. You can list custom pieces on Bricklink if they are LEGO stuff, so this was on Bricklink, a custom piece. They specifically stated it was from the LEGO Toys R Us build event, because again, that does not have a listing on Bricklink, so I quickly got it. It was the only one left, or at least the only one I could find in general. I'm very happy to add this to my collection. It's a special dual molded sword, and I always was a big fan of this particular blend of Nexo Knight swords, so I'm happy to have this. It's just kind of a cool thing because Bricklink doesn't even list it because of how obscure it is. I also got a random minifig with it as well. I specifically needed a random basketball player to supplement my NBA Ultimate Arena set, which I purchased a while ago from Bricklink but was missing one figure, so I just got a random one as well. Yeah, so this is Mr. Gold. If you aren't aware, in 2013 for the LEGO Collectible Minifig series, they put out a chase figure where only 5,000 were made in the entire world. This is one out of the 5,000. They're very special limited figures. It's not even real gold. This is just gold, like gold-plated plastic. But because it was so rare, everyone was looking for Mr. Gold. It became a hot commodity in the LEGO community and remained one of the most elusive aspects that I wanted to add to my collection, but just could not have the resources to get. Now, finally, I decided to pull the trigger. I spent, I think, around $2,500 on this, which I'm very happy I did because if you look on Bricklink now, the cheapest one is over double the cost at over $5,000. So I think I got him at a good time. I'm sure the price will go up and down over time, but I'm pretty happy with the price I paid overall. This is a fully chromed minifigure, so you can see the hat here, fully chrome. The head as well is chromed up all the way. It's chrome on top of a pearl gold body, which you can see right here, but it's a really special figure. I'm just really impressed with the production quality on this figure. The only thing that I think could have made it a little bit more special is if they made the hands chrome gold as well. We know LEGO is able to, because speaking of chrome gold, I got one more very special LEGO figure. Now this is the Chrome Gold C-3PO that was randomly included in LEGO Star Wars sets during the specific era celebrating the anniversary of LEGO Star Wars. This was, you kind of just had to randomly find it in a particular set. Now what makes this special is that, again, it is Chrome Gold, but I did end up having to pay quite a lot for it. I think I paid around $800 for this single figure. That's the cost of like the Death Star or something, so it's a pretty high value to pay for just this one figure, but I'm pretty happy with how much I paid. It was either $800 or $600. To be honest, I don't really remember, but it's really nice to finally be able to add this very special figure to my collection, and they actually go really well together. They're two different chrome gold LEGO minifigures that are incredibly rare. These are filling major gaps in my collection. I think with this one, I'll own almost every single Star Wars minifigure ever. So that's really special. And now, of course, I own all the collectible minifigs as well as just kind of a piece of LEGO history with the infamous Mr. Gold here. And I am so stoked to have these in my collection. It's just so cool to finally have these in hand, and I'm happy to share this with all of you. Alright, and with that, we have summed up this massive Bricklink haul. Let me know down in the comments below, do you own any of these items? If so, what do you think of them? And do let me know what you think of the haul itself, what were your favorite aspects of it, and do you wish that you owned some of these yourselves? I hope you enjoyed this video, and definitely stay tuned to Duckbricks for even more LEGO news, reviews, and discussions coming your way very soon, as well as haul videos like these, and subscribe for even more LEGO-related videos 3 times every single week. Thank you all so much for tuning in, and bye-bye for now.